Okay, it's a little bit after 7, so I'll call this board work session of the Silver Falls School District Board to order. And please note attendance. Thank you, Shelley, for filling in. Just discussion items tonight. Facility project scope for November bond election. Use of Schlater campus for an elementary or middle school. Andy, you want to kick this one off? You said you had a slide.
Yeah, and I know this has become somewhat of a repetitive topic, but I think based upon your interest and I think your desire to have some additional information, it's entirely appropriate. So this is the only slide that I have for you, and Bob Collins from DCPM is here and can chime in as well. But when you received information at your last work session, there was a discussion about use of the Schlater campus for elementary versus the middle school, and sit here for a second, Bob, you can chime in anywhere you want, but if you recall, the portions of the Schlater campus that would be removed, demolished and removed, are the original 1938 portion, and then the ag shop and wood shop. And with the removal of the 1938 portion, because again, this would be continue to be a multi-use facility with the high school, the portion outlined in red on the bottom of, there's 3 stories at this location, but on the bottom story, we have team room, some expansion to the shower rooms, the original showers of the Schlater campus. There's also a trainer room in there on the guy's side, on the girl's side, and the boys' side. There's lockers. And so this square footage, and Bob, this is where you can chime in, would be in the restructured Schlater campus would be, one of the options is to make up that lost space with what you see in blue. Is that accurate, Bob?
Yeah, the area in blue is slightly more than the area in red, you know, than what we figured out. The area over here, this area here, this is an existing classroom, and then there is a coach's office, and the idea would be to kind of make this one larger area to make a larger girls' locker room and coach's space. And then this area over here now is being used as robotics, and there's a weight room at one point.
That was the former high school weight room, right?
So the thought, the possibility would be that this could be a football team room, locker room. The idea that they'd still have, you know, decent access to showers and stuff in there. So that's just a possibility. Those 2 areas, slightly more than the red area that's lost. So it's just something we kind of put together as a possibility.
Okay.
When equalizing the space in the boys and girls locker room, we have to take into account equivalent access to space, Title IX civil rights issues related to that, and what you see on the left, in the blue on the left, would actually help us to meet the Title IX requirements for the old campus that didn't quite meet it. So that's a mandate that we'd have to maintain.
So the space in the red is the old locker rooms.
Correct.
That are under the
old gym, under the
old theater and stuff. Okay.
What girls' sports do we do over at Schlater right now?
Track. And we also have some volleyball practice over there. Middle school uses it for basketball and volleyball as well. And what?
Girls basketball practices.
And girls basketball practices there. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I would kind of propose that we go through all these and then just have a general discussion of what we want to do.
Sure.
Because I know that there's a lot of interest on the bond rates and things like that. So is that okay with everybody? Instead of discussing the pros and cons right now of an elementary versus a middle school? Unless somebody has something they want to throw out right now on that. But I would propose we kind of go through the construction timeline and then the bond rates, and then have a general discussion about where we want to go. Is that okay?
Makes sense.
Okay. Okay. So preliminary construction timeline. Bob, did you want to
Sure.
walk us through that one a little bit?
Yeah, so starting at the top there, you know, there could be some preliminary work that's done even before the bonds discussion in the district, understanding what would be the needs. once the bond passes, then there'd be ongoing work to define the scope, understand exactly what it is that the district needs, for how the decisions are made. Of course, there's budgets that have to be developed around that, based on the more details. There's a traffic study needs to happen, there's a site survey that needs to occur. The way I put this together, there's some assumptions that I made, but certainly, first step there is going to be demolition of the 1938 section, so we can put an RFP out for that actually prior to the bond, just so it's ready. It's dependent on the bond passing. The permits for demolition can be being worked on early on as well. Once the bond passes, then there's the architectural RFP would be decided on. Again, that can be developed and the process started before the bond, just to hit the ground running once it passes. At that point, the bond passes, then it'll be an effort to remove all the stuff that's inside the building now. There's desks and chairs and other things that are currently stored there that have to be temporarily stored off site so that demolition can occur. And then there would be any other components of the building that are not structural that need to be removed that I don't mention here, but there'd be abatement prior to the actual demolition of the building. In an effort to keep the fast pace of the whole program, I would recommend that we try to put together like 3 bid packages. And the first one would be structural demolition. That's something the A&E can actually develop pretty quickly once they're on board, and as opposed to trying to do demolition, structural construction and mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design. So we put that bid package out, take down the building. Then, the volumetric is the way in which the district wants to proceed. Certainly have a procurement activity for volumetric vendor and also the firm that actually builds the units themselves. So then we just enter into the programming, the schematic design. There's going to be iterative budget review. There's going to be value engineering as things are developed with the team, the district, myself, and some other folks, just to make sure that we're staying within the scope and within the budget that's developed. Then again, the second bid package would be for the civil work. That's something that's quite a bit there that needs to be done. It can be done, and have that starting here in March. That's something that can be done quite a bit during the school year. Before Community Roots school activities are actually out. There's lots of campus there that can be worked on. We have to obviously coordinate safety, traffic patterns and stuff, so there's not an issue. Then the way I see it here, and this is just my assumption, is that we could attempt to do the work in the Community Roots part of the building, which side they choose, and actually do that as a summer 2015 project. And with that in mind, there would have to be some construction documents that actually would be developed just for that piece of it, with other work other design work that hasn't been completed yet. But then the thought about that is that I think we would first of all get some of that work out of the way and be able to have them move in, as opposed to trying to do all that in the summer of 2016. Then going on, there's construction documents and the volumetric construction documents, which are a separate process that would carry on starting in the spring of 15, but going on through the summer. The way I see it here is the volumetric option. They would start actual fabrication in July and maybe go right in through November. That's a pretty big variable right there, but I think that's a good window. Then, once we have the construction documents there, I see is being done in July of 15. We have the building permitting to be done. Give 2 months for that, and then the once school starts up in September of 15, then we have that year, the rest of the year, to be doing remodeling on the other parts of the building, the commons area, the other classrooms, the existing classrooms that are not being occupied by community roots. And then as well, there's foundation work that's happening in the fall, September and October, with the intent of putting the volumetric pieces onto the site in January and February of 16. And then there's connections, but there's going to be connections from the idea of those volumetric modules is going to be kind of sandwiched in between existing spaces. So we'd have to have some design work to actually connect them and make that, work seamlessly. And then in May, furniture, fixtures, and equipment install and looking to be done in June of 16 with the idea that the district can actually, because there's definitely some shuffling around of students and furniture and stuff like that, so it gives the whole summer to actually make those moves happen. At Robert Frost, I looked at it as 2 phases, and again, this is not something that has to happen, but this is a thought that I had, would be to actually attempt to do the cafeteria in the first summer of 15, based on the fact that we can really isolate that area. It doesn't have to affect the students. And we're getting a large chunk of that work out of the way instead of trying to do it all the following summer.
Why do you have to do it during the summertime, since it can't be isolated?
Well, what I have here is, I had March through May.
Okay.
And installation June through August. So basically there's a process getting up to that point, but it'll certainly be a lot more activity, bringing cranes and stuff like that. So this is variable, but I was looking at still doing a summertime installation of the volumetric, but it could possibly
It could be
bump up.
managed. Yeah, just a matter of isolating the area.
Yeah. And then phase 2 at Robert Frost, I'm looking at, design continuing for the other pieces, which was the 6 classrooms that go underneath the covered plate structure, those bathroom upgrades, and that design work would happen through November 15 to February 2016, and construction there would be going from May to August, is how I see it. And Mark Twain, a similar approach of having 2 phases, again, trying to spread the workload out and make it a little bit easier for moving in the students and everything in the summer of 16. So I have phase 2 at Mark Twain in the summer of 16. There really isn't any real construction going on. It's mostly just deciding how the school is going to be reconfigured space-wise, with furniture and stuff like that. So that's kind of a first stab at a schedule. There's certainly lots of variables, and certainly can be a different approach than what I took here for this one. Any questions?
I have a comment and a question. Again, around the summer work, the more restrictions we put around a contractor, the more expensive it's going to be. So I'd really encourage just whoever's doing this work that we try to be pretty flexible and do it during, if we can isolate an area, open it up, they can do the work anytime.
Sure.
You just need to keep the area safe, keep it isolated. Also, what are your thoughts about contracting strategies?
Well, I would recommend CMGC. I think that's the best way to go, particularly the bid packages. We can get them on board with the design team so that they can help, talk about issues that an architect may not necessarily know about. They become more familiar with the building. And, we'd have to put in the schedule here of the exemption from standard procurement policy to do CMGC. Design build is certainly an option, but I think that CMGC would be a good way to go.
Including the demo piece?
Yes. I mean, that one could be done separately, but I still think it's good because they're going to understand from the beginning to make sure that parts are being saved and there's not an issue with that, affecting demolition. So.
Yeah, that being said, Bob, I noticed, or I didn't notice, where you had, there's existing water and power that will need to be relocated, that
Yes.
goes through there. Where is that?
Well, I'm looking at it here in the site work piece, that has to be done. And I honestly, actually, Joel and I were just talking about some of the utilities here, fiber and electric, and how we accomplish that and when. needs a little bit more investigation on how exactly we're going to do that best, so that we don't lose service to the community roots and this building.
Yeah,
So,
well, in PGE, they're not like speedsters, so
right. I agree.
the earlier the better.
Yes. And it may well be they're going to do quite a bit of work on permanent power before we make actual disconnect here and connections here. So,
Yeah.
Then off-site improvements, we know we're gonna have some amount of that. Do we have any responsibility other than pay out a fee and coordinate with them?
Well, I think that we would lump in the work that's going down James Street would be part of the CMGC contract, because that's all part of the site improvements, off-site improvements.
So just be the road work that,
The road work, putting in some new sidewalks, and new 8-inch line, I believe is what's needed for the sprinkler system to come down here and feed the campus.
Because there's, isn't there the water that feeds this building too, Andy?
Water that feeds this building comes from the Schlater building, correct?
Yeah, so that would have to be relocated
Yes.
ahead of time, but that's not that big of an issue. I mean, you could put in a temporary line for that as far as that goes.
Yeah, we actually investigated isolating the water and isolating electricity when we remodeled this building, and just didn't have the funds to do it at the time. So we have some work done in that arena.
Okay.
Yeah, Joel was doing a little investigating and found that there's an overhead line that feeds this building, then goes back and feeds part of that building. So it's kind of a real network of power feeds that has to be figured out by a designer. See the best way, and phasing was the best way they can accomplish keeping everything live that we need to.
Oh, looks good.
Yeah, it does look good.
If I can chime in just a moment, Tim, Bob and I have had a couple of good conversations about this, as have Joel and I, and about the reasonableness of having this project complete by the fall of 2016. Sure would want your input if you have any of you, but believe this to be a manageable project, and that especially now that we can see a visual of what it could look like over the course of approximately, 21 months between the time of the election and opening day. Think that this is a manageable project to get all three of these projects done, Schlater being the largest of the three.